My name is Margaret Adele, and welcome to Roll for TBR, my TBRPG, where I use dice and TTRPG mechanics to pick my TBR every month. Now, of course, we must begin with how did I do for the month of February, and that will inform how I roll for the month of March. Not great, and I knew it wouldn't be great right out of the get-go when I tried to read the first book. I picked middle grade, or rather the dice picked middle grade for me, and among that I picked Deep Blue by Jennifer Donnelly. This was not a mid-grade. It was sold by Scholastic, which was why I thought it was a mid-grade, but no, this is very much YA, and had all of the tropes I hate in YA, the overly protagonist who's a princess, but also magical, but also everyone is always thinking about her, whether in a good way or in a bad way, but also the really hot prince loves her. Like, I was so over it within 60 pages, so I was like, okay, no. And instead, I went with the obvious pick that I should have picked. Don't know why I didn't before. The Titan's Curse by Rick Riordan. I have the first 5 books of the Percy Jackson series. I want to get through it because I've heard such great things about the YA version of this series. I don't know why I didn't immediately default to this. I should have. I think I got caught up in the color in the title because that relates to a Pop Sugar prompt. Maybe that's what I did wrong. But in this one, this is the 3rd book in the Percy Jackson series. And stuff is going down. Obviously, I can't talk a lot about things because spoilers, it is the 3rd book. But I really liked this one. This is the book where Bianca and Nico get introduced. And I loved that aspect. And Percy, he's turning into such a noble hero, and I love it. Even as much as this series is also kind of a critique and an indictment of heroes of lore and what it means to be a hero, like, I loved it so much. So in the future, we're just all going to remember, if mid-grade comes up again, we're just going to default to this series until I've caught up with the books I have, and then we can start trying to pick other things. The next prompt was to continue a series, and for this one I picked and read Insert Coin to Play by Jennifer Donahue. This is the 5th book in the novella series, all about a trio of heisty type spies who just like doing things for fun. There's actually not a lot of tension because they're already really rich. They just like these things. So they tend to be very lacking in a lot of emotional tension, but they're kind of fun for the different things they get into, and this one did a lot more with the character dynamics between the 3. I still wanted a little bit more. I still wanted a more depth to the dynamic between the 3, but regardless, I did enjoy this. I will be continuing with it at some point, and I do still have another review request from the author sitting in my inbox, but I am waiting for more TBR slots to open for that. It's a process. It's a process. The 3rd prompt was TBR Vet, and I went with a review book for this, Home to the Wild by Francesca McMahon. It's one of the last review requests I got in 2022, hoping to get all of those taken care of by the end of March. Fingers crossed. Regardless, this is all about a young girl who was taken in and raised by wolves. The thing is, I got really distracted while reading it because the author brought up the concept of how well the girl is surviving with the wolves. And spoiler alert, not well. At one point, one of the wolves even notes that her bones are showing, her ribs. And so, as a foster parent, as an elementary school staff member, as someone who is trained to spot and think about child safety and welfare hazards, I could not focus on anything else for the entirety of the book aside from safety and wellness hazards for the child, and it endlessly affected me. And the author even noted that she was kind of iffy when she brought that up, but she thought, oh, the fantasy will cover it. And I was like, it kind of covers it, but it's a very tenuous thing where the minute you pull back the curtain kind of just falls away. But regardless, it was still a decent pick for me. I am so glad I got that read, even though I won't be continuing with the series as a review series. Up next was another TBR Vet, and for this one I went with Fracture by E.J. Fish, another review book that I've had from 2022. Oh, I mean, I've been reviewing this series for forever. I probably, if I hadn't taken so much time, could have gotten the entire series reviewed by now. But this is the fourth book in the Ziva Paven series. And the author warned me that like this book was going to end in a giant cliffhanger and I should read this one and the next one together. But in all honesty, the cliffhanger was there, like it was a thing. There was definitely prompts to continue reading, but it wasn't as big as I think the author thought it was, because the other books in this series had been such, not totally contained things, but there was always a mission that would be done by the end of the book, with the more like character arc things carrying through to the next one. Whereas this one, you know, the big mission isn't done by the end, which is what I think they meant in saying that there was a cliffhanger. But in all honesty, as someone that's read a lot of sci-fi and a lot of this kind of sci-fi, it was pretty standard. Wasn't anything bigger than what I'm used to as part of a sci-fi series, but I still enjoyed it. I continue to love this series a lot. I do want to continue. I have the next book already, but again, I do not have it currently on my list. So again, we're going to have to wait for more TBR slots to open up. At some point, maybe I need to consider that it's time to slow down or pause the TBR challenge entirely, but we're not quite there yet. I got under 100 books and I'm way too proud of myself to give that up just yet. Next up, we had Continue a Series. And for this one, I picked Perilous Hunt by Lindsay Baroker. This is the 7th book in the Fallen Empire series, and it's one of the OG series on my channel, one of the first series I started reading when I really got into this, and as a result, I have been dragging my feet to finish it. This is the 7th book. I believe there are 8, not counting like side questy novellas and stuff, and this one, I can't really tell you a lot about it, because it's the 7th in the series and a lot went down, but I really loved the ending. The ending was properly big and sets up a nice big questy thing for the last book. And I just got to get over it. I just got to get over that I'm going to read it and it's going to be done. And one of the OG series that I've been reading for this channel over the course of 4 years is going to be gone. I just have to accept that. And the author does have other space opera stuff. So like, I even have the first in another space opera series that this author has written. So really, like, I should see this as an opportunity to move on, but like, I'm going to drag my feet. I know I am. This book took me weeks. I kept putting it on the back burner while I read other books because I just wasn't ready to finish it. And I know I'm going to be even worse come book 8. But we just got to go. It's been 4 years. It's time to put it to bed. The last prompt was by POC Author, and for this I had originally picked The Unbroken by C.L. Clark, thinking that, oh, I have a 3-day weekend, I can really sit down and hammer this out, but I forgot that the Saturday of that 3-day weekend I had my first SCA event, which is a historical type dressing and fighting, an artistic event, and it was my very first time, and I was there for like 12 hours. It was great. I was burnt out socially, but it was great. But the thing is, no time for reading there. Absolutely none. And in general, high fantasy is a really hard pick for me a lot of times. And as I was looking over and I was thinking about things, I realized that it would be really cool if I could get one of my TBR lists, aka the Books for Girlies with Religious Trauma video out on Easter. That might be petty. And I remembered that I actually had a BIPOC book on that TBR. So I was like, oh, we'll just switch it out, get that read so I can get another book on that TBR for that video. So instead, I went with Confessions of an Alleged Good Girl by Joya Goffney. This is all about a pastor's daughter who realizes that she can't have sex. Her and her boyfriend have been trying and something just like physically, medically isn't working. The thing is though, is that she's a preacher's daughter and so she's not even supposed to be trying to have premarital sex. So this is a problem that she can't even go to her parents for, and as a result ends up with very unlikely friends trying to help her out with this. And it was contemporary goodness. It was a lot of big issues. I liked how frankly it talked about the sexual topics. You do not see any on-page intercourse happening, but there's a lot of talk about how premarital sex and being told to be afraid of it so deeply can affect people, and the climactic scene when everything comes out and it's big and there's a lot of dark things uncovered, and then the catharsis of the end, like, oh, it was so good. I am a pastor's kid, so granted, the white churches I went to are definitely different in culture from Black gospel churches or from Black Baptist churches, but a lot of things still ring true even across those cultural boundaries. So I resonated with this book a lot, and that list is going to be so hard hitting. And yes, it is probably petty to put it out on Easter, but that's what I'm here for. And so if you're interested to know more about my thoughts about this book in particular, be on the lookout for that come early April. So where does this lead us? How am I going to be rolling for March? Now, I did not get a natural win, so I will not be rolling with a modifier. However, I did still read a book for every prompt I got. And I sat down and I thought about it, and I am adding the rule that to get a dirty win, I do still have to read at least 50% of the books I originally picked for it to count. But because I have my dirty win, I will not be leveling up, so I will still just be rolling for 6 prompts. However, I do get to roll with advantage. And if you don't know what that means in TTRPG mechanics, if you roll with advantage, it means you can either roll 2 dice at the same time or roll the same die twice, and you pick the higher number. I consider this to be not quite as good as a +3 modifier because you still can get a 1 or a 2 if the dice just repeatedly roll bad enough, as they have for me in this process. So I'm a little nervous that we're going to get a lot of low numbers like we have before. But most importantly, I really got to think about it. Even if I don't have a review book that I can default to read for that prompt, I still have to be very mindful of what I'm actually going to be in the mood to read, what I'm actually going to want to read, continuing series and TBRs. Again, I really want to get that Books for the Girlies with a Religious Trauma playlist out in early April, which means I really have to get certain books on this month's TBR for that to be feasible. But I do have 2 rerolls. I read technically 7 review books, although I haven't filmed that 7th review as I filmed this. So I have 2 more. So we have that, and I will make use of that. But in general, I'm a little bit nervous, but I'm trying to laser focus in and picking the best prompts possible. All right, rolling 2 times for first prompt. All right, 14. Can we beat that? No, we cannot. All right, 14. That is by POC Author. For this one, I went with How to Catch a Queen by Alyssa Cole. This is an arranged marriage romance all about a woman who is ready to be queen. She's here, she's going to do it. And she finally gets the arranged marriage she wants to a country that doesn't really want their queen to do anything. She is just supposed to kind of be there. The king in question doesn't actually have that much power, and he's kind of just letting his advisors run all over him. And she comes in and she's like, no. So I'm really excited for this one. I love the motif of taking back your power. And I've learned that I actually do like arranged marriage tropes if they're done correctly. I will admit I primarily got into this series because the sequel is a Sapphic Anastasia retelling. So admittedly, that's the one I'm more interested in, but I'm still interested in this one too. I've had the ebook on my Kindle app for forever, and I really need to get to it. I don't know why I haven't before, but that one will be a great pick. Prompt 2. All right, and can we beat a 15? Ooh, doing well. Ooh, 16. 16 is continue a series, and I'm really happy because this means that I can get a book on my TBR that I already wanted to read in March, and that is Grandmaster Arcanist by Shami Stovall. I don't know why, but for the past 2 spring breaks, I have read a Shami Stovall book, mostly because they tend to be chunky. This one is actually a little bit thinner than her other books. It's not even over 500 pages. somebody might be losing their edge. But I do know that a lot of stuff is going to go down in this one, mostly because a lot of stuff didn't go down in the last one. And I have been reading enough books in the series, this is the 8th, to know that if the previous book was low key, the next book's going to devastate you. So I'm nervous. The author also said that a certain chapter in this book was the most difficult chapter emotionally that she's ever written. So that bodes well. But basically, the Frith Chronicles is a YA Flintlock fantasy all about a world that is basically high fantasy Pokemon. And every magician called an Arcanist or an Arcanist, if you take the audiobook word for it, they basically team up with a creature called an Eldrin, and it could be basically any fantasy creature from any culture you've heard of, and their magic is essentially themed around that creature's abilities, and I love it. I love the concept. I love this series, but I'm really nervous because I'm pretty sure one super dramatic thing is going to happen in this book that I have been dreading since the end of book 6, and she knows it. I have literally called her out for it in TikToks that she's reacted to before. But this will be my read for spring break, and I hope it doesn't break me. All right, can we keep it up? Can we keep it up? Okay, can we beat a 6? No, we cannot. All right, 6 is a book turned into a movie. And I did not have a lot of options for this one, or at least options that I knew of. I don't keep up with movies. But then I remembered that I wanted to do a reading vlog on this one particular book. So I am reading Legally Blonde by Amanda Brown. Yes, this is the book that the movie was based on. And then the musical was based on the movie. The musical is my preferred form of this story. And admittedly, I have not heard great things about this book, but it was self-published in an era where self-publishing was so much harder than it is today, and it gained enough traction to get traditionally published and then be turned into a movie. So I'm interested in it for no other reason than the historical importance of it. But if you don't know, Legally Blonde focuses on a woman who grew up wealthy and privileged, thinking that her super wealthy and equally privileged boyfriend is going to propose to her, but he, in fact, dumps her because she's not serious enough, so she decides to follow him to Harvard Law School to win him back. But feminism happens in the interim. I again love the musical, so I'm probably going to be comparing it a lot to that. I might have it just playing in my head, and I will be doing a reading vlog for it, so keep an eye out throughout March for that. Here's hoping that it's not as bad as I'm afraid it is, because it has such historic importance. I want it to be good. Prompt 4. All right, can we beat an 11? Nope. An 11 is for a short story or poetry collection. And I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit annoyed this one came up because I had actually kept 2 short story collections on my TBR for review just in case it came up. And then eventually I was like, I shouldn't wait. What's the odds that it pops up? And then it pops up just after I finish the second one. Okay, fine. So instead, we're going to do a different book, and you can't judge me. But I am going to read Farther Reefs by Space Wizard Science Fantasy. No, okay, I haven't read the short story collection that I'm published in. I meant to. I really meant to. This was my debut publishing, the first short story I've ever had published. I am starting to look into other anthologies, but the actual process of doing this was such a dream and so easy, and I made money off of writing, which was flabbergasting to me that someone wanted my writing enough to pay decent money for it. But this is a collection of nautical sapphics, sapphic romances set in nautical tales. The very last one is mine, called Caught, about a first mate pining for her pirate captain. And I had such a fun time writing it, and I do want to get to reading the rest of these. Also because I am going to do a TBR video eventually about sapphic love stories in nautical settings, because I found a lot of other books with a similar premise. So obviously I want to include this one, and I just feel really bad because, I mean, this is my author copy and I haven't read it. So sorry to everyone else in here, but I promise I will read it this month. All right, prompt 5. All right, first roll is a 5. Apropos, can we get any higher than that? Yeah, 13. All right, the next prompt, number 13, is sci-fi. For this one, I went with Shockwave by Lindsay Baroker. This is my thought process. I'm going to start the new series that I already have from this author, and then knowing that other good things are still coming from the space opera mind of this author, I'll be a little less sad finishing the other series. Or maybe this is part of me dragging my feet. Regardless, this is a space opera series all about a robotics engineer who is capital N nerdy and thinks that he's just like a low-key dude. But then all of a sudden, robotic assassins storm onto the campus where he works, trying to kill him, and he has to flee and figure out why they want him dead. Something encoded in his very genes. I think this book has an MLM romance, from what I've heard, and that makes me slightly iffy because usually I don't do MLM romances from cis female authors because I've been burned in the past before. But this is an author that I trust fairly decently, and has included other kinds of sexuality in her work before, so it's not just a pure MLM thing. And obviously she's written other romantic encounters as well. So I'm willing to be hopeful in that respect. And also, I just love the slow burn romance that is in the other series, so I'm willing to bet that she could do something like that again. But this is another ebook. I am getting so low on my ebook. Like, I'm pretty sure that when I do pause the TBR challenge and I start buying up a lot, I'm gonna buy almost purely indie ebooks to restock, because I am almost to single digits unread in my Kindle library, and that is mind-boggling to me. All right, prompt 6, let's go. Okay, 13. All right, can we do any better? Really, kiss for luck? Mwah, thank you. Okay, let's try. Oh, 14, good girl. And lastly, we have the BIPOC author prompt again. And so I finally decided to read the book I have been telling myself I would read for years, and that is Everything by Nicola Yoon. I am so far behind. This was a BookTube favorite years ago, has been made into a movie. I low-key considered it for the turn into a movie prompt, but then I remembered I had Legally Blonde, so I decided to move this into the BIPOC prompt. But this is all about a teenage girl who has a very rare disease that she's essentially allergic to the world and has to stay inside, but then a boy moves next door and feelings begin to happen. And yes, it is that classic sick teenager love story thing. I don't know if this was a part of like the discourse around those kinds of books, but I am excited for it. I actually found this as an ARC in a used bookstore, and don't worry, it was years after the fact, because the movie came out, or the book came out in 2015, and I got this in like 2019. And also the used bookstore that I got it from just accepts donations. They don't pay anything for the books you give, so no one got money for donating their ARC. But I am excited for this one. It looks to be a lighter read, which is why I went with it, because the other made into a movie book I was looking at was Interview with the Vampire, but I heard that one was sad. So we might save that for summer when I have more space to be sad. But this one might also be sad, now that I think about it. Again, I can't remember if it landed in that sad, sick romance discourse. I might be setting myself up for failure here. Regardless, really excited for this one. And that is it, my TBR for the month of March. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit bummed that out of 6 prompts, I only managed to fit one review book in. But the problem is that I've noticed is that my review list is probably the most homogenous it's ever been lately. It's a lot of paranormal romance, which is great. I love paranormal romance, but the homogeneity means that it doesn't fit well into a majority of prompts. Regardless, I am excited for the books that I have. I feel like I did a lot better of a job picking this time around. I definitely took a lot more time because I almost fell into the trap of I should read this big serious book just because, but no, I caught myself. I said, what do I actually want to read in March, knowing that my spring break was probably going to be eaten up by Grandmaster Arcanist. So I think I'm doing well. I really would like to get another win and level up again come next month, but I'm not sure. Mostly because, you know, I didn't level up this time and I'm still like, cool, fine, whatever, as opposed to, like, I'm not really feeling bad about it, which is part of it. I purposely didn't put any punishments in here because I didn't want to make my reading make me feel worse. But fingers crossed we can get another win come April. Feel free to let me know what you're reading over the month of March. Do you have a TBR game? Has it ever low-key screwed you over before? Have you ever failed at a month of it? Please let me know down in the comments below. And with nothing else to say, I hope you have a wonderful day and a marvelous tomorrow.